The cameras were already rolling. Starlight stood on a white stage under hard lights, smiling until her cheeks hurt. The crowd in front of her looked like a moving ocean. Phones were held up like little mirrors. Behind her, a giant screen showed her face and the VOT logo, so big it felt like it was watching her back. "Thank you," she said, bright and practiced, "for believing in real heroes." She heard the cheers. She felt nothing from them. Not really. Off to her left, Homelander floated a few feet above the stage like it was normal. He didn't need wires. He didn't need steps. He just hung there, cape drifting, smiling at the crowd like they belonged to him. Starlight kept her eyes forward. She could feel him watching her anyway. A VOT handler at the edge of the stage mouthed, "Keep smiling." Starlight smiled harder. Then the air above the crowd bent. At first it looked like heat over a road, a shimmer, a wobble in the sky that didn't match the weather. People pointed and laughed, thinking it was a trick. Then the shimmer tore open like a rip. No sound at first, just a clean, sharp crack in the air, like someone snapping a giant sheet of glass. The crowd's cheer turned into confused noise. Phones tilted up. More people started recording. VOT cameras swung to catch it. Starlight's stomach tightened. She had seen soups do weird things. She had seen labs. She had seen lies. But this was not a soup trick. The tier widened. A dark gap sat there, shaped like a door that refused to fit the world. And someone stepped out. He didn't fall. He walked from the rip like it was a hallway. A man in a black suit. Neat. Calm. Dark hair, clean face, eyes that looked amused even before he smiled. He landed lightly on the stage without bending his knees much, like gravity was just being polite to him. Starlight froze. Her body wanted to react, but her mind didn't know what rules applied. The man looked around at the screaming crowd, the cameras, the big VOT logo behind him. He sighed like he had walked into the wrong party. "Right," he said, voice clear even without a microphone. "This is new." A child near the front cried. A wave of fear hit the crowd, and suddenly people pushed. Chairs scraped. Someone fell. Then another. A panic surge started, fast and stupid. Starlight moved on instinct. She jumped off the stage edge and threw light out in a wide arc, trying to guide people back, trying to keep the push from turning into a crush. Homelander dropped lower. His smile tightened. He hated anything he didn't control. The man in the suit looked down at the crowd. His face shifted, just slightly, like a bored mask had slipped to show something older underneath. He raised one hand. The panic slowed. Not like everyone suddenly became brave. More like the urge to shove and climb and trample got gently pushed down, like a loud radio turned lower. People still breathed fast. They still cried. But they stopped trying to crush each other. Starlight felt it too. The fear didn't vanish. It just stopped driving her legs. She stared at the man. "What did you do?" He stepped to the front edge of the stage and looked at the crowd like he was checking if they were hurt. Like he cared. Then he smiled again, and the smile was sharp and warm at the same time. "I hate crowds," he said, like that was the real emergency. A VOT security team rushed in from behind the stage. Black armor, rifles, tasers. They formed a line, weapons up, fingers tight. "Hands where we can see them," the lead guard shouted. The man glanced back at them. His eyes flicked over the rifles like they were toys. "Oh," he said, "how adorable." The guard barked again, louder, like volume could make control real. Starlight saw the lead guard's mouth open to shout a third time. Before he could, the man spoke, calm and casual. "What do you desire?" The lead guard blinked. His grip loosened. His voice changed, like the words slipped out before he could stop them. I desire." He swallowed. His face went red. "I desire to quit this job and go home." The guards behind him stared. The lead guard's eyes went wide like he couldn't believe he had said it out loud. The crowd laughed in confused bursts. Some people clapped. Phones zoomed in. Starlight's heart beat hard. That wasn't mind control like Vought drugs. It wasn't a hypnosis trick she knew. It was something cleaner, like a truth pulled into daylight. Homelander landed on the stage with a heavy thud that made the mic stand rattle. He stepped between the man and the crowd, smiling big. "Okay," Homelander said, cheerful in the way a shark could be cheerful. "This is fun. Great bit. But I'm going to need you to step down now." The man looked at Homelander the way someone looks at a barking dog they didn't invite inside. "And you are?" he asked. Homelander's smile twitched. The crowd waited like they were watching a live fight. "I'm Homelander," he said, voice still bright, but with iron under it. "And this is my country." The man nodded slowly, like he was filing the name away. "Lovely," he said. "I'm Lucifer." There was a beat of silence. Then a few people laughed, thinking it was a joke, a stage name, a stunt. Starlight didn't laugh. She watched Homelander's eyes. She watched the tiny change in his jaw. Homelander leaned closer. His voice dropped, so only the man would hear. "You don't get to do this on my stage." Lucifer looked past Homelander at Starlight. Just a glance. Like he had already noticed her was the only real thing up here. Then he looked back at Homelander and smiled wider. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. Homelander didn't answer, but his face changed anyway. It wasn't fear. Not yet. It was something like being seen. Homelander's eyes flashed red for half a second. Heat shimmered in the air. The crowd gasped, phones shaking as people tried to keep filming. Lucifer didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, like the idea of being hurt was a strange rumor. From the rip in the sky, a low pressure rolled out, like a storm that wasn't made of clouds. Starlight felt it in her teeth. She looked up. The tear was closing, not like a door shutting, like the world was trying to stitch itself back together. Lucifer watched it with mild annoyance. Then he looked at the cameras again, at the crowd, at the Vought logo that was still smiling behind him. His voice carried, soft but clear. "This world is loud," he said. "So tell me." He turned his gaze back to Homelander, calm as ever. "What are you hiding?" Vought didn't waste time. Lucifer was still on the stage when the first wave of suits arrived. Not soldiers, not soups. People in expensive coats with earpieces and smiles that did not reach their eyes. Starlight watched from the side as a handler stepped forward, hands open like he was greeting a guest instead of a problem. "Mr. Lucifer," the handler said carefully, "we'd love to get you somewhere safe. Private. Away from the crowd." Lucifer glanced at the handler's name badge and then at the cameras. "Safe from what?" he asked. The handler forced a small laugh. "From confusion. From danger. The public can be unpredictable." Lucifer's eyes flicked over the handler's face like he was reading a page. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked, almost gentle. The handler froze. His throat bobbed. "I desire," he whispered. Then his voice came out louder, betrayed by his own mouth. "I desire to be the man who brought you in." The handler's face turned stiff with horror. Lucifer smiled. "At least you're honest." Homelander stepped in, still wearing his big public grin, but now it looked glued on. "We've got this," Homelander said to the handler, like he was talking to a child. "I'll take him." Lucifer looked at Homelander. "Will you?" Homelander's jaw tightened. "Yes." Starlight could feel the tension in the air like static. She had stood close to Homelander when he was angry before. It always felt like standing near a loaded gun. Lucifer felt different. Not like a weapon. Like a rule. Vought led Lucifer away through a back corridor. The crowd outside still screamed and cheered in messy waves. Cameras chased every angle they could find. Starlight followed because she had to. Because if she didn't, she would be pretending again. As they walked, Lucifer's eyes wandered over everything. The metal doors, the security checkpoints, the Vought posters that called the 7 Protectors. He hummed under his breath like he was bored. In a side hall, a young assistant stood with a tablet, shaking. When Lucifer passed, he looked at her and asked the question again. "What do you desire?" She blurted, "I desire a nap and health insurance." Lucifer chuckled. "Good desire. Reasonable." The assistant's eyes went wide. She looked like she wanted to vanish. Homelander didn't laugh. He didn't like losing control of rooms. They entered Vought Tower through a private elevator. Inside, everything was clean and cold. Glass, steel. The kind of place that tried to look like it had no dirt in it, even though dirt paid for everything. Lucifer studied his reflection in the elevator mirror. "You people love cages," he said, as if commenting on the decor. The handler forced another smile. "We love security." Lucifer tilted his head. "Is that what you call it?" Starlight stood near the back, silent. Lucifer glanced at her again, just once. Not hungry, not threatening. Curious. The elevator opened into a controlled floor, a security lab. Vought's medical evaluation area. A team waited. Doctors, scientists, 2 supes in tactical suits, and a man in a gray suit who looked bored enough to be dangerous. Stan Edgar. Starlight's stomach dropped. When Edgar showed up in person, it meant the game was serious. Edgar looked at Lucifer like he was a new device someone had delivered. "Welcome," Edgar said. "Calm. Smooth. We're honored you've chosen to appear in our world." Lucifer smiled. "Have I?" Edgar didn't react. "We prefer to understand what we're dealing with. That keeps everyone safe." Lucifer took a slow look around the room. The scanners, the needles, the restraints that were pretending to be optional. "Ah," he said, "a cage with better lighting." Edgar held up a hand. "No one is here to harm you. We simply need answers." Lucifer's eyes narrowed with amusement. "Answers are easy." He stepped forward, stomping a foot from Edgar. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. For the first time, Edgar's face changed. Just a fraction, like a muscle tightened behind his eyes. Edgar didn't blurt anything. He stared back, steady. "Control," he said after a quiet beat. "I desire control." Lucifer's smile softened, almost pleased. "How refreshing. Most of you lie first." Edgar nodded once, like that was fair. "Then you understand why we need to know what you are." Lucifer spread his hands. "I'm Lucifer." Edgar's eyes stayed flat. "That's a name." "It's also true," Lucifer said. Homelander shifted closer, like he wanted to cut in. Edgar spoke without looking at him. "Not now." Homelander's nostrils flared. He hated being handled. He hated it even more in front of strangers. Lucifer watched the little power struggle like it was a comedy show. A scientist stepped forward with a scanner wand. "We're going to run a quick—" Lucifer looked at him. "What do you desire?" The scientist swallowed and blurted, "I desire to be the one who proves you're just a soup." Lucifer laughed once, short. "Try then." The scientist ran the scanner. The device beeped, then screamed. The screen flashed error codes, then went black. The scientist tried again. Same result. Edgar watched, expression unchanged, but his fingers tapped once against his own wrist. A small tell. "Blood sample," a doctor said, holding up a needle with a steady hand that didn't match his shaking eyes. Lucifer looked at the needle. "No." The doctor hesitated. "Sir, it's standard." Lucifer's voice stayed calm. "I said no." The lights in the room flickered. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind everyone that the building was not the strongest thing here. Homelander stepped in. "He said no." Homelander snapped. Too fast. Too eager. Like he wanted to be the one to protect Lucifer from Vought's own people. Edgar finally looked at Homelander. Homelander's face hardened into a smile again. Lucifer leaned toward Edgar, almost friendly. Your pet wants to be your master. Homelander's eyes flashed red. Starlight felt her hands curl. She hated that she still got tense like prey. Edgar ignored the insult. If we can't test you, we'll observe you, he said. We'll offer you a place, resources, a role. A role, Lucifer repeated, amused. And the script? Edgar's voice stayed even. You could be the greatest hero on Earth. Lucifer glanced at the posters on the wall. You sell heroes here. Edgar's eyes didn't blink. We provide what people need. Lucifer's smile faded a little. No, you provide what people fear. That made the room colder. Edgar's mouth tightened. What do you want, Lucifer? Lucifer's eyes moved across the room. Starlight, the doctors, the guards, Homelander. Then he shrugged. Right now, he said, I want to see if anyone here is real. He turned slightly, looking at Starlight. What do you desire? He asked her. Starlight's throat tightened. She hated how the question felt like a hand reaching into her chest. She tried to resist. She tried to keep her training, her PR face, her lie. But the words came out anyway, clear and sharp. I desire, she said, voice low, to stop pretending. Silence. Homelander's head snapped toward her. Edgar looked at her like she had just made herself a liability. Lucifer's expression softened, and for the first time, Starlight saw something in him that wasn't a joke. Good, he said quietly. That's a start. Across the city, Billy Butcher watched the footage on a cheap tablet in a filthy safehouse. He sat with his boots on a stained table like it was his throne. Huey stood beside him, pale, eyes wide. Mother's Milk leaned in, arms crossed, face tight. Frenchie smoked, distracted for once by something bigger than his own mess. Kimiko watched the screen without blinking. On the video, a handsome stranger in a suit stood on a Vought stage. The stranger asked a simple question, and people told the truth like they couldn't stop themselves. Butcher's smile was small and mean. Look at that, he said. A walking truth bomb. Huey swallowed. He said his name was Lucifer. Frenchie let out a short laugh. Maybe he is, no? In this world, it fits. Shook his head. Or it's a game. A Vought game. Butcher leaned closer to the screen as Homelander's face cracked for that half-second. Butcher's eyes sharpened. That ain't Vought, Butcher said. Huey's voice shook. If he can do that to people, what can he do to us? Butcher didn't answer right away. He watched the stranger's calm eyes. Then he said, everything. Kimiko made a small sound, a warning. Butcher nodded once. Yeah, that's the point. Huey looked sick. So what do we do? Butcher's grin widened. We plan, he said, and we pray the bloody devil hates Homelander more than he hates us. Back in Vought Tower, Homelander paced in a private room like a trapped animal. The walls were thick, the windows were bulletproof, the furniture was perfect and useless. Lucifer sat on a couch like he owned it, legs crossed, calm. Homelander tried to tower over him. It didn't work, even though Lucifer was sitting down. Don't do that again, Homelander said. Lucifer raised an eyebrow. Do what? That thing, Homelander snapped. The question. Lucifer smiled. You mean the truth? Homelander's heat vision warmed the air. The room smelled faintly like burnt dust. Lucifer looked down at Homelander's clenched fists. You're angry, Lucifer said, almost kind, because you're scared. Homelander laughed, loud and fake. I'm not scared. Lucifer looked up again. His eyes were bright and calm. What do you desire? He asked softly. Homelander's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His face twisted. He fought it like he was trying to hold his own throat shut. Lucifer watched, patient. Homelander took a step back, furious at himself. You can't make me, he hissed. Lucifer nodded. "Oh, I can." Homelander lunged. Fast, violent. A blur of cape and muscle aimed to smash Lucifer into the wall. Lucifer didn't move. Homelander's fist stopped an inch from Lucifer's face. Not because Homelander chose to stop, because the air around his arm refused him. His muscles shook like he was pushing against an invisible door. Lucifer leaned forward slightly, eyes amused. "I'm not here to take your toys," Lucifer said. "But if you touch me again without permission, you'll learn what outmatched feels like." Homelander's eyes burned red. The beams fired. They hit Lucifer square in the chest. Nothing happened. No burn, no tear, no scream. Lucifer looked down at the spot where the beams touched like he was checking for dust. Then he looked back at Homelander. "That's all?" Lucifer asked. Homelander's face went pale for half a second. Then his rage roared back in, louder to cover the fear. "You're not taking my world," he growled. Lucifer stood up. Slow, smooth. "I don't want your world," he said. "I want your honesty." Homelander backed up one step without meaning to. Lucifer smiled. "And that," Lucifer said, "is going to be very entertaining." Vought made a decision that night. Not the kind you announce on TV. The kind you make in quiet rooms with locked doors. Edgar sat at the head of a long table. Lawyers and executives sat around him like shadows. A screen showed a pause frame of Lucifer's face. "He is not on Compound 5, a scientist said, voice tight. "We can't find any marker. His blood sample, we couldn't get one." An executive swallowed. "He made a guard confess on live camera." A lawyer spoke fast. "If he keeps doing that, we lose control of our narrative." Edgar's hands stayed folded. "Then we manage his access," he said. "We manage his appearances. We give him a role." Another executive leaned forward. "What role? He won't sign anything." Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen. "Everyone signs something," he said. "One way or another." A man from security cleared his throat. "Homelander is unstable around him." Edgar didn't blink. "Homelander is unstable," he said. "That's not new." The room went quiet. Edgar's voice remained calm. "We will create a situation," he said. "A crisis. Public. Controlled." He tapped the table once. "We will make Lucifer solve it in front of cameras. We will make the public demand him." A lawyer frowned. "And if he refuses?" Edgar's eyes turned colder. "Then we learn what motivates him," Edgar said. "And we use it." Lucifer stood alone later in a quiet part of the tower, looking out over the city. The lights of New York blinked like a million tiny signals. Sirens moved through the streets. People lived their lives under the glow, small and busy. Lucifer's face was calm, but his eyes held a strange weight. He could feel it. This world was not like his. It was loud in a different way. Not music, not sin, not worship. It was fear, poured into everything like paint. And under that fear, he felt something else. A thin pressure at the edge of reality, like a door that knew his name. He didn't look back at it. Not yet. Instead, he smiled faintly and whispered almost to himself. "All right then." He turned away from the window. "Let's see what you all choose." The next morning, the crisis began. It started with an alert that hit every phone. A terror attack at a packed public transit hub. A soup had gone rogue. Hostages, explosives, live stream already running. Vought news anchors spoke fast, eyes wide, voices full of practiced fear. And at the center of the footage, clear as day, was a masked man in tactical gear, holding a child in one arm and a detonator in the other. He shouted demands that sounded almost too perfect. Starlight watched in a Vought briefing room, stomach turning. "This is real?" she asked. A handler nodded quickly. "It's a rogue soup. We have to respond." Homelander stood near the wall, arms crossed, pretending not to care. Lucifer stood beside the screen, watching like he was judging a magic trick. The masked man shouted again. Lucifer's eyes narrowed. "That one is lying," Lucifer said. The room stiffened. A few people laughed nervously, like they didn't understand what they heard. Edgar stepped into the room and looked at Lucifer. "Can you stop him?" Edgar asked. Lucifer glanced at Edgar. "Of course." Edgar's tone stayed even. "Then do it. Be the hero." Lucifer smiled. "Ah, there it is." He looked back at the screen. The masked man shoved the child forward. The child cried. Lucifer's smile faded. Starlight felt her own anger flare. "We have to go," she said. Homelander scoffed. "Relax. We've got it." Lucifer walked toward the door like none of them mattered. Starlight followed before she could talk herself out of it. Homelander followed too, because he could not let Lucifer take a spotlight he believed belonged to him. Down in the city, Butcher watched the same broadcast from the safe house. Huey's hands shook. "This is bad. That kid." MM's face was hard. "This feels staged." Frenchie tilted his head, eyes sharp. "The demands are too clean, like someone wrote them." Butcher smiled like he had smelled blood. "It's Vought," he said. "They've cooked up a little show to make their new mystery soup look good." Kimiko pointed at the screen, then made a cutting motion with her hand. Her sign was clear enough. "People will die." Butcher's grin vanished. "Yeah," he said, "they will, if we don't get there." Huey looked at him. "We're going toward a hostage situation with Homelander and whatever that guy is." Butcher grabbed his coat. "We're going because that's what we do," he said. "We stop them from turning people into props." He paused at the door and looked back at the screen, at Lucifer's calm face in a clip Vought had already started replaying. "And if the devil's real," Butcher added, "we find out what side he's on." The transit hub was chaos. Police lines, screaming, sirens, a Vought camera crew already in place, positioned like they had rehearsed where to stand. Starlight pushed through the crowd, cape flapping behind her. People called her name, begged her to save them, filmed her tears like they owned them. She spotted the hostage-taker on a raised platform near the trains. He had a vest that looked like explosives, a child in his grip, a detonator held high. His voice boomed through a stolen speaker. "Back up, or they die." The fear in the crowd was real. That part was always real. Starlight's hands lit with a glow. She took a step forward. "Hey," she called, trying to keep her voice steady. "We can talk. Put the child down." The masked man swung the child like a shield. "No," he shouted. "The seven are liars. Vought is—" He froze. Lucifer had walked into the open, hands in his pockets, like he was stepping into a hotel lobby. No armor, no cape, no panic. Just a suit. The hostage-taker turned his head as if pulled by a string. Lucifer looked up at him. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked, voice calm. The masked man's body jerked. His breath caught. Then the words fell out of him like coins spilling from a torn pocket. I desire to finish the script," he said, horrified. Starlight's blood went cold. The crowd went silent in a strange wave, as if everyone had felt the truth hit at once. The masked man's eyes widened behind the mask. He started shaking. Lucifer tilted his head. "Script?" he asked. The masked man tried to clamp his mouth shut. Lucifer just waited. I desire the money they promised," the man blurted. "I desire to get out alive." A Vought producer near a camera went pale. Starlight's eyes snapped toward that producer. She saw the fear. Not for the hostages. Fear of being caught. Homelander landed hard on the platform edge, loud enough to shake dust from the ceiling. "Okay," Homelander shouted, spreading his arms to the crowd. "Everyone stay calm. We are handling this." He shot a quick look at Lucifer, sharp and hateful, then turned back to the cameras with his perfect smile. Lucifer didn't look at the cameras. He looked at the child. The child's face was wet with tears. His small hands trembled. Lucifer's expression softened. He took one slow step forward. The hostage-taker squeezed the child tighter. "Don't come closer!" he screamed. Lucifer was suddenly right in front of him. Not running, not flying. Just there. Starlight's mouth opened. She hadn't even seen him move. Lucifer gently took the child's wrist and peeled the child away like removing a sticker from glass. The child blinked, confused, then stumbled into Lucifer's side. Lucifer placed the child behind him, safe. The hostage-taker looked down at his empty arm like his world had been stolen. He raised the detonator in panic. Homelander's eyes flashed red, ready to blast. Lucifer sighed like this was tiring. He took the detonator from the man's hand with 2 fingers. Then he crushed it into useless plastic. No spark, no drama, just gone. The hostage-taker fell to his knees. Starlight stared. The crowd started cheering again, but this cheer had a different sound. It wasn't for Vought. It wasn't for Homelander. It was for the stranger in a suit who had ended it like it was nothing. Homelander felt it. You could see it on his face. The way his smile tightened, the way his eyes sharpened like knives. Lucifer handed the child to Starlight without looking away from the hostage-taker. "Take him," Lucifer said. "He's shaking." Starlight took the child, stunned by how normal Lucifer's voice sounded. The child clung to her. Lucifer looked down at the hostage-taker. "What do you desire?" he asked again, quieter. The man sobbed. I desire to not be punished," he choked. "I desire to go home." Lucifer nodded once. "Then tell the truth," he said. The man's shoulders shook. "Vought put me here," he said. "They gave me the vest. They gave me the lines. They said it would be safe." The crowd's cheer died into shocked murmurs. A Vought cameraman lowered his camera for the first time, unsure if filming would save him or ruin him. Starlight's stomach turned with rage. Homelander's head snapped toward the nearest Vought crew. His jaw clenched. Edgar was not here, but Edgar's plan was. Homelander's voice cut through the hub like a blade. "Stop filming," he ordered. Too late. People were already streaming it. Lucifer looked at Homelander, calm. Homelander floated up, just a foot, like he needed height to feel safe. "You did this," Homelander said, voice low. "You're ruining it." Lucifer's eyes stayed steady. "You mean I'm revealing it?" he said. Homelander's smile returned, but it looked wrong now. Sharp, broken. He turned to the crowd, arms wide. "This man is confused," he announced. "He's a criminal. Vought did not—" Lucifer interrupted, gentle but clear. "What do you desire?" he asked Homelander. Homelander froze. The hub went so quiet you could hear a train rumbling far away. Homelander's mouth moved like he was chewing glass. He tried to speak over it. "I desire," he started, then stopped, eyes flaring red. Lucifer didn't raise his voice. He didn't push with force anyone could see. He just looked at Homelander like a judge waiting for an answer. Homelander's lips trembled. Then it came out, loud enough for every mic to catch. "I desire them to love me," Homelander said. His own voice betrayed him. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't strong. It sounded small. A few people gasped. One person laughed in shock, then covered their mouth. Starlight's breath caught. She saw the truth in it. She had always known it, but hearing it like that was different. It stripped him. Homelander's face twisted into pure rage. His eyes blazed red. He fired. Heat vision slammed into Lucifer's chest in a bright, violent line. Starlight shouted, stepping forward, light flaring in her hands. The beam hit Lucifer and stopped mattering. Lucifer didn't move. He didn't burn. He didn't even blink. He looked down at the beam like it was an annoying flashlight. Then he lifted his eyes back to Homelander. Homelander's confidence broke just for a heartbeat. But he couldn't stop now. Not with cameras watching. Not after being made small. He surged forward, fist cocked back. Lucifer moved this time. Not fast like a soup. Fast like the world had decided to place him somewhere else. Homelander's fist hit empty air. Lucifer was at Homelander's side, one hand on Homelander's shoulder. Lucifer didn't punch him. He didn't blast him. He simply pressed. Homelander's body slammed down into the platform like gravity had suddenly gotten angry at him. The concrete cracked, dust jumped up. Homelander groaned, shocked more than hurt. Starlight stared again. She could barely follow it. Homelander pushed up, snarling, trying to lift off. He couldn't. It was like the air itself refused to carry him. Lucifer leaned down slightly, voice calm, almost bored. "You are very strong," Lucifer said. "For a pet." Homelander's face contorted. "Don't call me that." Lucifer's eyes narrowed, not cruel, just firm. "Then stop acting like one," Lucifer said. Homelander screamed and pushed harder. The concrete shattered more. The platform shook. People ran back in fear. Phones kept filming anyway. Lucifer glanced toward Starlight, toward the child in her arms. "Get them out," Lucifer said. Starlight didn't argue. She moved fast, rushing the child toward the exits, her mind spinning. Behind her, MM and Butcher's team appeared at the edge of the crowd, drawn by the same chaos. Butcher's eyes locked on Lucifer and Homelander, like he was watching a bomb with a brain. Huey looked ready to faint. Lucifer turned back to Homelander. Homelander's eyes burned red again. Wild. Lucifer sighed. He lifted his hand, and the air around Homelander's head went still. Homelander's beams cut out like someone had flipped a switch. Homelander's mouth opened to shout. No sound came. Homelander's eyes widened in panic. Lucifer spoke softly, and his words felt louder than the sirens. "You wanted to be a god," Lucifer said, "but you can't even handle being honest." Homelander thrashed, silent, furious. Lucifer straightened and looked around at the cameras, at the crowd, at the Vought crew shrinking back. He didn't smile now. He looked tired. "This is what you sell?" Lucifer asked, voice calm. "This is what they worship?" A Vought producer tried to speak. "Sir, please." Lucifer glanced at him. "What do you desire?" The producer blurted, "I desire for this to cut to commercial." People laughed, ugly and loud. Then they realized what he had said. The laughter died into anger. Lucifer turned back to Homelander and released the pressure. Homelander's voice came back in a roar. "You think you can come here and take everything?" Homelander shouted. "You think you can make me small?" Lucifer's expression stayed steady. "You already are small," Lucifer said. "You just hide it with noise." Homelander launched himself upward, finally breaking free, and shot toward Lucifer like a missile. Lucifer didn't move away. He simply lifted one hand. Homelander stopped in midair, inches from Lucifer's face, suspended like a statue. The hub went dead silent again. Even Butcher stopped breathing for a second. Lucifer looked at Homelander, close enough to see every twitch of fear under the rage. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked one last time, quiet. Homelander's lips shook. He fought it. He lost. "I desire," Homelander whispered, voice cracking, "to never feel afraid again." Lucifer's eyes softened for a flicker, like he almost understood. Then his face returned to calm. "That," Lucifer said, "is not something anyone can give you." He let Homelander drop, not from a lethal height. Just enough to slam him into the platform again, hard, humiliating, loud. Homelander lay there for a beat, stunned. Lucifer stepped back. He looked at the cameras. He looked at the crowd. Then he looked at the Vought logo on a nearby screen, still trying to smile through the broadcast. Lucifer spoke in a clear, even voice. "Your heroes are props," he said. "Your fear is a product, and your truth is buried under contracts." He turned and began walking away, calm as if he had just finished a meeting. Behind him, Homelander rose slowly, shaking with rage, staring at Lucifer's back like he was staring at a future nightmare. Butcher watched, eyes narrowed, mind racing. Huey whispered, barely able to speak, That's not a soup." Didn't answer. Starlight hugged the trembling child tighter and stared at Lucifer with a mix of fear and strange hope. And somewhere deep in the air, beyond what cameras could see, that quiet pressure at the edge of reality grew heavier, like something had noticed Lucifer's voice and decided to listen. Lucifer walked out into the daylight. He didn't look back. Not yet. The video from the transit hub did not disappear. It multiplied. It was on every phone, every screen in every bar. It played in taxis and on giant billboards. People rewound it and watched it again, like they were trying to prove their own eyes wrong. A masked man admitted it was a script. A producer admitted he wanted a commercial. And Homelander, the face of the country, said he wanted love. Then he tried to burn the truth out of the air. Annie sat in a small Vought recovery room with a paper cup of water she hadn't touched. The child from the hub had been taken by medics and a wall of handlers. Annie had tried to stay with him, but a Vought woman in a clean suit had stepped into her path and smiled like a door locking. "Let's not confuse the boy," the woman had said. Annie's hand still glowed faintly from stress. She stared at the blank TV on the wall. Vought had turned it off. Like that would stop the world. 2 guards stood outside the door. Not for her safety, for Vaught's. She could still hear the hub in her head, the way the crowd had gone silent, the way the truth had landed like a punch, the way Lucifer had looked at her when she said she wanted to stop pretending. He hadn't laughed. That scared her more than the power. The door opened. A handler stepped in, forcing a bright face. "Annie," he said, like he was checking on a friend. "We need you downstairs. There's a situation." Annie stood up. "What now?" The handler swallowed. "Mr. Edgar is holding a meeting. The whole 7. And him." Annie didn't ask who him was. Everyone in the building felt his presence like a storm behind glass. She walked with the handler through halls that smelled like polished money. Posters showed smiling heroes. They looked fake now, like masks left on chairs. When they reached the meeting room, she saw Homelander first. He was standing by the window, back turned, hands clenched behind him. His cape hung still, like even the cloth was scared to move. The rest of the 7 sat around the table, quiet in the wrong way. The Deep stared at his hands. A-Train bounced a foot without meaning to. They didn't look at each other. Lucifer sat in a chair that didn't belong to him, and somehow made it look like it did. He leaned back with easy posture, like he was at a lounge, not the center of a company emergency. Stan Edgar stood at the head of the table, calm as ever. He didn't look tired. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man watching numbers change. Annie took her seat. Lucifer's gaze flicked to her for a moment. A small nod. Not friendly, not cold, just acknowledging. Edgar spoke first. "We have a problem," he said, as if anyone in the room didn't know. A-Train tried to laugh. It came out broken. "Yeah, no kidding." Edgar ignored the sound. "The public has seen something that does not fit their expectations. That creates instability. Instability harms business. Business is power." Homelander's shoulders tightened. Edgar clicked a remote. The screen behind him lit up with charts and clips. The hub footage played again. Homelander's confession was cut into a loop, slowed down, zoomed in. It was already being used against them. Edgar turned the screen off before Homelander could explode. "We will control this narrative," Edgar said, "as we always do. Lucifer smiled a little. Do you? Edgar met Lucifer's eyes. Mr. Morningstar, he said, you have an unusual ability. Annie's stomach dropped at the name. It sounded too specific, too real, like Edgar had already dug into a place no one should reach. Lucifer's smile didn't change. Yes. Edgar continued, voice even. You create honesty. That can be a tool, or it can be a weapon. Either way, it must be managed. Homelander turned around so fast Annie flinched. You don't manage him, Homelander snapped. You manage me. Edgar didn't even blink. I manage Vought, he said. You are one asset inside it. Homelander's eyes flashed hot, then cooled as he forced a smile again. He hated Edgar. He needed Edgar. Lucifer watched the exchange like someone watching a small animal bite a leash. Edgar folded his hands. We will present Mr. Morningstar as a new hero, he said. A myth, a symbol, a necessary addition to a new era. Annie stared. You're going to put him on a team? Edgar's eyes moved to her. We are going to put him on television. Lucifer laughed softly. You really don't learn. Edgar's tone stayed steady. You appeared in public. You engaged in public. You created a public event. Now you are a public figure. That is not a choice. It is a condition. Lucifer leaned forward slightly. You mistake the world's attention for a chain, he said. It isn't. Edgar held Lucifer's gaze. Then what do you want? Lucifer's eyes slid to the window, to the city below. Lights and movement. 1,000,000 lives. I want to see who you are when you aren't performing, Lucifer said. All of you. A-Train swallowed. The Deep looked like he wanted to leave his skin. Homelander stepped closer to the table, voice low. And what if we don't give you that? Lucifer looked back at him. The room felt colder. You will, Lucifer said simply, because you already did. Homelander's fists clenched. Edgar spoke again, stepping between them with nothing but calm. This meeting is about resolution, he said. We are going to stabilize our brand. We are going to protect our market. And we are going to ensure the public sees Mr. Morningstar as part of our structure. Lucifer's smile returned. Structure, he repeated, like a cage. Edgar didn't deny it. Like a system, he said. Systems are how humans survive. Lucifer's eyes sharpened. No, he said. Systems are how humans hide. Annie felt her heart pound. She wanted to speak. She wanted to scream. But every word in that room could be used, edited, sold. She looked at Lucifer again. His face was calm, almost amused. But under it, she sensed something else. He wasn't here to save people. Not as a job. He was here to test them. Edgar's phone vibrated once. He checked it, then looked up. The president wants a call, Edgar said. The Pentagon wants answers. Several religious leaders want to meet Mr. Morningstar. They're calling him a miracle or a threat. Lucifer's smile widened. Both are right, he said. Edgar set the phone down. We will schedule controlled appearances, he said. And Mr. Morningstar will be accompanied at all times. Lucifer stood. The chair scraped softly. No, he said. The word was gentle. It still landed like a door shutting. Edgar's eyes didn't change. You will be accompanied, he repeated. Lucifer walked toward Edgar. Not threatening, not rushed. Just a man closing distance in a room where everyone knew he didn't need to. He stopped a step away. What do you desire, Stan? Lucifer asked. The seven froze. Annie felt her breath catch. Edgar's face remained composed. His voice did not shake. I desire, Edgar said, to keep this world predictable. Lucifer nodded. Of course you do. Edgar held his gaze. And what do you desire? Lucifer's eyes flicked toward Homelander, then to Annie, then to the city again. I desire, Lucifer said, to hear the truth out loud. Then he turned and walked to the door. A guard stepped into his path, nervous, hand near a weapon that would never matter. Lucifer looked at him. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. The guard blurted, "I desire to not die today." Lucifer patted his shoulder as he passed. Smart. He left the room, and no one stopped him. Not because they didn't want to, because no one knew how. Homelander stood shaking in place, smile broken at the edges. Annie watched him with a sick feeling. He looked like a bomb that had learned it could explode in public. Edgar stared at the closed door for a long moment. Then he spoke, quiet and sure. "Prepare the contingency," he said. Annie didn't know what that meant yet, but she felt the building tighten around it. Across the city, Butcher watched the same clips on a bigger screen now. Frenchie had rigged it in a safe house apartment with curtains always closed. The footage had been slowed down 1,000 ways. The internet had done what it always did. It dug, it mocked, it worshipped, it hunted. Huey paced like his feet were trying to run away without him. "They can't spin this," Huey said. "They can't." He made them confess. MM sat at the table, arms crossed. "They'll try anyway," he said. "They always do." Frenchie exhaled smoke toward the ceiling. "The truth is a strange thing," he murmured. "People can see it and still pretend it is not real." Kimiko stood near the window, peeking through a gap in the curtain. Her jaw was tight. She had seen enough cages to know one when the world was building one. Butcher replayed the moment Homelander answered. He paused on Homelander's face. "Look at him," Butcher said. "He's not angry because he got hurt. He's angry because he got exposed." Huey swallowed. "So, this Lucifer guy, is he good? Is he bad?" Butcher's mouth twisted. "He's honest," he said. "And in our line of work, that's worse than evil sometimes." MM leaned in. "We don't know what he is," he said. "But we know what Vought will do with him. They'll try to own him. If they can't, they'll try to kill him." Huey's eyes widened. "Kill him?" Homelander's beams didn't even... "Doesn't matter," Butcher said. "You don't beat a thing like that with strength. You beat it with leverage, with traps, with politics, with making the world hate it." Frenchie nodded slowly. "A story," he said. "They will make a story." Kimiko's hands moved in quick signs. "And we will be in the story." Butcher stood. He grabbed his coat. "Then we get ahead of it," he said. "We find him before Vought turns him into their new mascot, or their new enemy." Huey blinked. "Find him where? He can just appear, right?" Butcher smiled without humor. "Yeah," he said. "But even the devil goes somewhere when he's bored." He pointed at the screen where Lucifer walked away from the cameras, calm. "He goes where the truth is buried," Butcher said, "because he likes digging it up." Lucifer walked through New York like he had lived there 100 years. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't hide. People recognized him from clips and streams and shaky phone footage. Some stared. Some shouted. Some tried to take selfies. Some backed away like he was a curse. He was none of those things. He was a mirror. He stopped at a crosswalk, watching cars pass. The city smelled like exhaust and food carts and wet pavement. It was alive in a loud, messy way. A man bumped into him, then flinched as if expecting pain. Lucifer looked at him. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. The man blinked hard. I desire to not be invisible," he said. Lucifer nodded once. "Then stop acting like you are," he said. He walked on. He was not hunting Vought, not directly. He was listening. The world around him had a constant hum of wanting safety, wanting fame, wanting revenge, wanting to be forgiven. This universe wanted things loudly, but it didn't admit it. It sold the wanting under different names. He could feel the shape of it all, like a map. And under it, deeper, he felt something else. A pressure, a quiet pull at the edge of reality, like a door half open in a dark hallway. He paused near an alley where the noise of the street thinned. The air there tasted wrong. Not bad, just thin, like the world was stretched. He turned his head slightly. In the brick shadow between two buildings, there was a line in the air, a faint seam, like the tear from the sky had left a scar. Lucifer's eyes narrowed. "Hello?" he whispered. The seam did not answer, but something behind it watched. Lucifer smiled faintly, almost pleased. "So you noticed," he said. A siren wailed nearby. Footsteps ran. A police chase. A small human drama. Lucifer turned away from the seam and followed the sound instead, because he wasn't ready to open doors yet. He found the chase at the corner, a teenage boy running with a bag clutched to his chest, eyes wide with panic. Two cops behind him, shouting. The boy tripped on a cracked curb and hit the ground hard. The bag tore open. Vials rolled out, clinking. Compound 5. Lucifer crouched, picked one vial up between two fingers, and stared at the blue liquid. A cop skidded to a stop, weapon up. His eyes flicked from Lucifer's face to the vial. His mouth went dry. "Drop it," the cop said, voice shaking. Lucifer looked up. "What do you desire?" he asked. The cop's mouth betrayed him. "I desire overtime and a promotion." The second cop's face went red. "Shut up," he snapped, then looked at Lucifer with fear. "Who are you?" Lucifer stood, still holding the vial. "Someone you shouldn't threaten," he said. The boy on the ground stared at Lucifer like he was seeing a ghost. Are you the devil?" he whispered. Lucifer's smile returned. "Sometimes," he said. He turned the vial in his fingers. He could feel the hunger inside it. Humans had tried to bottle power like it was a drink. He handed the vial back to the boy. "Don't," Lucifer said simply. The boy's eyes filled. "I need money," he said. "I need to—" Lucifer's gaze softened, just a touch. "What do you desire?" he asked. The boy's voice broke. "I desire my mom to stop being sick." The cops went quiet. Lucifer looked down at the vial, then back at the boy. "I can't fix everything," Lucifer said, "but I can fix a lie." He glanced at the cops. "You," he said, nodding to them. "Take him home. Don't touch him. Don't take the vials. Tell your boss you lost the trail." The first cop tried to resist. His body didn't move anyway. Not because he was frozen, but because the idea of disobeying suddenly felt like trying to swim upstream. Lucifer smiled at the boy one last time. "Choose better," he said. Then he walked away, leaving the cops and the boy standing in a silence that felt like a new rule had been written. He didn't see the small camera across the street catch the whole thing. He didn't see the Vought drone high above the buildings, following him like a patient insect. But Stan Edgar did. In a quiet room inside a quiet building, Edgar watched the live feed with cold focus. Lucifer was not random. He was pattern. He was going to the cracks. Edgar turned to a scientist. "He can influence behavior," Edgar said. "Not through drugs, not through fear, through exposure." The scientist nodded, sweating. It's like he pulls truth out." Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen. "Then we don't fight him with force," he said. "We fight him with environment." The scientist swallowed. "What does that mean?" Edgar's voice was calm. "We build him a room," he said. "A place where every truth is harmless, where his gift becomes entertainment." He paused. "And if he refuses the room," Edgar added, "we make the rest of the world feel like he is the danger." Homelander sat alone in his private suite at the top of the tower. The city looked tiny from up there. People were dots. Cars were lines. He should have felt powerful. He felt watched. His phone buzzed over and over. Not calls, messages, clips, edits, memes. Someone had taken the moment he confessed and put sad music behind it. Someone else had put a laughing track. Someone had made a montage of him smiling while the words, "I desire them to love me," flashed in red. Homelander's hands shook. He crushed the phone until the screen shattered, then threw it through a wall. Drywall exploded. The phone fell into the next room, dead. He stood, breathing hard. He remembered Lucifer's face. Calm. Not impressed. Not scared. Homelander had met strong supes before, stronger than most, but even they flinched when he got angry. Lucifer had looked at him like he was a child throwing a tantrum. Homelander's eyes burned hot. He flew out of the suite in a blur, punching through the night air above the city. He needed something simple. He needed someone to fear him again. He found it in a random place, a rooftop party. Music, lights, rich kids laughing like nothing mattered. Homelander landed in the middle of them. The music cut as the DJ froze. Everyone screamed, then fell silent as they realized who he was. Their fear washed over him. It helped. He smiled. "Hello," he said, cheerful. "Who wants to take a photo?" Hands trembled as phones lifted. People forced smiles through terror. Homelander stepped closer to a boy in a designer jacket. "What do you think of me?" Homelander asked. The boy's mouth opened, shut, opened again. You're amazing," he said. Homelander leaned in, eyes hard. "Say it like you mean it." The boy's voice cracked. "I love you," he whispered. Homelander's chest eased for half a second. Then he remembered Lucifer's question, the way the truth had dragged him out. Homelander's smile fell. He grabbed the boy by the collar and lifted him over the edge of the roof. The boy screamed. The party erupted. Homelander's voice turned sharp. "Tell them," he said. "Tell them you love me." The boy sobbed. I love you." Homelander looked at the crowd. "Did you hear him?" he asked. They nodded wildly. Homelander let the boy go. Not down to his death. Down onto the roof. Hard. Painful. Humiliating. Homelander turned to the crowd, cape snapping in the wind. "Love me," he said, louder. "Or fear me. Either works." He lifted off again, leaving them crying and shaking in the dark. As he flew, his mind hardened into a new plan. If Lucifer's power was truth, then Homelander's weapon would be something else. Noise. Attention. A world that screamed so loudly it couldn't hear its own heart. He smiled to himself. He would drown Lucifer in the one thing Lucifer couldn't stop with a gesture. A story. Annie found Lucifer again 2 days later. Not because Vought wanted her to, because she wanted answers. She went out alone, hood up, hair tucked in. She moved through the city like she used to before fame, like a person. She followed rumors. People talked about him like a ghost that asked one question and ruined lives. A waitress told her he had been in a diner and made a businessman admit he wanted to fire half his staff. A taxi driver said he had been in the back seat and made the driver admit he wanted to go back to school. A homeless man laughed and said Lucifer had asked him the question, and the man had answered, "I desire a sandwich," and Lucifer had just said, "Fair," and walked away. Annie didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that. She found him in a small, quiet bar with a piano in the corner. Not luxe, nothing fancy, just worn wood, dim lights, and a bartender who looked like he had seen everything. Lucifer sat at the piano, fingers moving calmly. The melody was simple, but it held the room without trying. Annie stood in the doorway. Lucifer didn't look up right away. He finished the phrase, let the last note fade, then turned his head. "Hello, Annie," he said. She stiffened. "How do you?" He smiled. "Your desire is loud," he said. "It echoes." Annie stepped closer, keeping space between them. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why this world?" Lucifer's eyes returned to the keys. "I walked through a door that wasn't supposed to open," he said. Now I'm here. That's it? Annie pressed. You're not chasing something? Running? Lucifer laughed softly. Everyone is always chasing something, he said, and everyone is always running from something. He glanced at her. What are you running from? Annie's throat tightened. Vought, she said. Him. Lucifer nodded, as if that made sense. People keep calling you a hero, Annie said. Or a demon. But you're not helping. Not really. You just expose. Lucifer's face stayed calm. Exposure is help, he said. In a world built on lies, truth is the first rescue. Annie's hands curled into fists. Truth doesn't stop bullets, she snapped. Truth doesn't stop him from hurting people. Lucifer's gaze sharpened. And you think I should kill him? He said. Annie froze. She hadn't said it. Lucifer looked back at the keys. I could, he said simply. It would be easy. Annie's heart pounded. She believed him. Lucifer's voice stayed smooth. But then what? He asked. Your company builds a new Homelander. Your world cheers for a new mask. Nothing changes except the face. Annie's anger drained into something heavier. Lucifer played a single note, then another. I am not here to be your executioner, Lucifer said. I'm here to see if any of you choose differently when the lies are gone. Annie swallowed. What do you want from me? Lucifer finally looked at her fully. His eyes were bright and old. I want you to stop pretending, he said. You already said it. Now do it. Before Annie could respond, the bar door opened again. Butcher walked in like he owned the place. Huey behind him, nervous. Behind Huey, steady. Frenchie and Kimiko trailing like quiet shadows. Annie's body tensed. Her hand lifted, ready to flash light if she needed. Butcher's eyes locked on Lucifer. So, Butcher said, voice rough. You're real. Lucifer smiled. Define real. Butcher stepped closer, ignoring the bartender's nervous stare. Huey hovered near the door like an escape plan. Butcher looked Lucifer up and down. You made Homelander confess, he said. You made Vought slip. I should be thanking you. Lucifer tilted his head. But you're not. Butcher's mouth tightened. Because I don't trust miracles, he said. Miracles have a price. Lucifer's smile widened. Everything has a price, he said, especially in your world. Butcher leaned in, voice low. So here's the question, he said. Are you here to help, or are you here to play? Lucifer's eyes flicked to Huey, then back to Butcher. I'm here to ask, Lucifer said. What do you desire? Huey flinched like the question might hit him next. Butcher didn't blink. I desire, he said, voice hard, for a Homelander to suffer. The words landed heavy in the room. Annie closed her eyes briefly. She felt the truth of it. Lucifer nodded. Honest, he said. Ugly, but honest. Stepped forward, calm. And I desire my family safe, he said, almost daring the words to be used against him. Lucifer nodded again. Reasonable, he said. Frenchie's eyes darted. I desire to be forgiven, he said softly, like it hurt to say. Kimiko signed quickly. I desire for the pain to stop. Lucifer's expression softened at that. Not pity. Recognition. Huey swallowed, then blurted before he could stop himself. I desire to not be scared all the time. Silence. Lucifer looked at Annie last. Annie's voice came out steady, even though her chest felt tight. I desire to bring Vought down, she said. Lucifer smiled, pleased. Now we're speaking clearly. Butcher's eyes narrowed. Don't get cozy, he warned. You could still be worse than them. Lucifer stood from the piano bench. He faced Butcher like an equal, which annoyed Butcher in a way he couldn't hide. You're afraid of me, Lucifer said, calm. Course I am, Butcher said. Anyone with that kind of power is a problem, Lucifer's voice stayed gentle. "No," he said. "You're afraid you'll become like them if you win." Butcher's face went still. For half a second, his eyes looked tired. Then the anger came back like a shield. "Save your therapy," Butcher snapped. Lucifer chuckled. "I'm not offering therapy," he said. "I'm offering choice." Annie stepped closer. "What are you doing?" she asked Lucifer. "Are you building a team?" Lucifer shook his head. "No," he said. "Teams are messy." Butcher scoffed. "Then what?" Lucifer looked toward the window, toward the street. "I'm going to find the place where your lies are made," Lucifer said, "and I'm going to walk inside." Stiffened. "That's a suicide mission for us," he said. Lucifer glanced back. "For you," he corrected. "Not for me." Butcher's jaw clenched. "We don't follow strangers into traps," he said. Lucifer's smile returned, sharp. "Then don't," he said. "But you will." Butcher bristled. "And why's that?" Lucifer's eyes flicked to Kimiko, to Huey, to Annie. "Because you can't stand cages," Lucifer said. "Not even when you pretend you can." He started toward the door. Annie moved with him without thinking. Butcher hesitated a beat, then followed, because he hated being read, and hated being left behind even more. Outside, the city kept moving. Cars honked. People shouted. Life continued like it always did, even with a new devil in town. Lucifer walked like he could feel the map under the pavement. He led them toward the seam. They found it in the same alley where Lucifer had seen it before. It looked like nothing to anyone else, just shadow and brick and trash. But Annie felt it the moment they stepped close. The air there didn't feel like air. It felt thin, wrong, like a door frame without a door. Frenchie swore under his breath. "Mon Dieu," he whispered. "It feels like a wound." Huey hugged his arms. "I hate this," he muttered. "I really hate this." Lucifer stood in front of the seam and stared at it like an old memory. Butcher watched Lucifer's face carefully. "That yours?" Butcher asked. Lucifer didn't look away. "Not exactly," he said. "But it is because of me." MM's voice was low. "What is it?" Lucifer lifted a hand, not touching the seam, just hovering near it. "A listener," he said. "A crack. A place where something can peek through." Annie's skin prickled. "Something from your world?" Lucifer's smile faded. "Something that notices me," he said. "And that means it may notice you." Huey's voice cracked. "Great," he said. "Just what we needed. More nightmares." Lucifer's fingers twitched slightly. The seam shimmered, responding like it recognized him. Butcher stepped forward fast. "Oi!" he snapped. "Don't open that!" Lucifer glanced at him. "Why?" he asked. Butcher's eyes flashed. "Because we've got enough bloody monsters," he said. "We don't invite new ones." Lucifer's eyes held him. Calm. "You don't invite monsters," Lucifer said. "You build them." Butcher's face hardened. Lucifer turned away from the seam and began walking again. Annie followed. "Where now?" she asked. Lucifer pointed with his chin toward the city's darker edge. "Where your company hides the failures," he said. "Where they store the things they can't sell." swore quietly. "Black sites," he said. Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Sage Grove," he muttered. "Or another name. Another place." Vought had many cages. Lucifer nodded as if he'd already known. "Then let's go meet the cage makers," Lucifer said. Vought moved at the same time. Edgar sat in a secure office while screens showed Lucifer walking with the boys and Starlight, like they were part of a strange parade. A security chief leaned forward. "Should we deploy the 7?" he asked. Edgar's eyes didn't leave the screen. "No," he said. "Not yet." The chief frowned. "He's with Butcher." Edgar's voice stayed flat. "Butcher is predictable," he said. "He is anger. He can be steered. The chief's mouth tightened. And Lucifer? Edgar paused. He is curiosity, Edgar said. And curiosity can be guided if you offer it the right room. He turned to another screen. A VOT facility map. Underground levels. Labs. Lock down the site, Edgar said. Activate protocol candlelight. A scientist blinked. That's experimental. Edgar's gaze turned cold. So is he, Edgar said. We will learn what motivates him. We will learn limits. The scientist swallowed. And if there are no limits? Edgar's voice remained calm. Then we change the world so his power becomes irrelevant, he said. They drove at night in a stolen van that smelled like old fries and gun oil. Huey sat cramped in the back, knees up, trying to breathe normally. Butcher drove like he wanted the road to apologize. Watched mirrors. Frenchie checked weapons and tools. Kimiko sat quiet, eyes sharp. Annie stared out the window, thinking of all the times she had been a prop. Lucifer sat in the passenger seat like he had ridden in worse. You're enjoying this, Annie said quietly. Lucifer glanced at her. Enjoying is a strong word, he said. I'm engaged. Butcher snorted. Engaged in what? He asked. Breaking our world for laughs? Lucifer's eyes slid to him. Your world is already broken, he said. I'm just refusing to pretend it isn't. Huey swallowed. Can you do that thing less? He asked. The question. It's a lot. Lucifer smiled, amused. You fear honesty, he said. Huey's voice cracked. I fear getting myself killed, he said. Lucifer nodded. Fair, he said. Honesty can be dangerous. Annie watched his profile. He didn't look like a monster. That was the problem. Monsters were easier when they looked like monsters. The van turned onto a quiet road. Trees rose on either side, dark and thick. Somewhere behind those trees, Vought had built a place that didn't exist on maps. Butcher slowed as the lights ahead appeared. A fence, cameras, guard towers, a clean entrance like a business park. A sign on a nearby building said something harmless, something about research and health. Butcher spat out the window. Here we are, he muttered. Lucifer tilted his head, listening. So many locked hearts, he said. Frenchie muttered, and locked doors. Butcher pulled the van into shadow and killed the engine. Rules, said quietly. We go in fast. We get people out. We don't get pinned. Butcher glanced at Lucifer. And you, he said. No opening demon doors. No starting end of the world stuff. Lucifer smiled like a man hearing a child set rules for a storm. I'll try, he said. They moved through trees toward the fence. Frenchie cut a camera feed with quick hands and a small device. The red light above the camera blinked, then went dark. Kimiko climbed first, silent as a cat. She dropped on the other side without a sound. Annie followed, hands glowing faintly to light the ground in soft pulses. Huey climbed last, shaking. Lucifer didn't climb at all. He walked to the fence, placed his hand on it, and the metal simply unlocked itself with a soft click, like it had decided cooperation was easier. Butcher stared at him. Show off, he hissed. Lucifer shrugged. I dislike effort, he said. They moved toward the main building. A patrol truck rolled near. Guards inside. Flashlights sweeping. Held up a hand, signaling stop. Lucifer stepped forward anyway. Butcher grabbed his arm. Oi! Lucifer gently pulled free. He walked into the edge of the flashlight beam like he wanted to be seen. The truck braked. A guard leaned out, rifle lifting. Hands up, the guard shouted. Lucifer smiled. Hello? He said. The guard blinked, recognizing him. Fear hit his face like a wave. You're not supposed to be here, the guard stammered. Lucifer tilted his head. What do you desire? He asked. The guard's mouth betrayed him. I desire to sleep, he blurted. I haven't slept in 2 days. The second guard laughed nervously, then caught himself. Lucifer nodded. Then sleep, he said. The guards' eyes drooped like someone had lowered a heavy curtain over their minds. They slumped in their seats, breathing slow, rifles sagging. Butcher stared. That's convenient, he muttered. Lucifer walked past the truck and waved the others forward. They reached a side door. Frenchie pulled tools out. Lucifer touched the handle. The lock clicked open. Inside, the building smelled like bleach and cold air. The halls were too bright, too quiet, like noise had been banned. Annie's stomach turned. She knew this smell, the smell of care that meant control. They moved in single file. A screen on the wall showed cheerful shapes and slogans. Safe tomorrows. Heroic futures. Butcher's lip curled. Sick, he whispered. They passed a hallway where voices echoed behind a door. A woman's sob. A man shouting, "I didn't mean to." Annie's hands tightened. Lifted a hand again. "We need the cells," he whispered, "where they keep people." Lucifer paused, listening with his head slightly tilted. Then he pointed down a corridor. "Down," he said, "deeper, where the guilt is louder." Butcher shot him a look. "Stop talking like that," he muttered. Lucifer smiled. "No," he said, "it's accurate." They moved. At the end of the corridor, an elevator waited with a keycard slot. A camera above it watched. Frenchie reached for the panel. Lucifer looked at the camera. "What do you desire?" he asked softly, as if speaking to the building itself. The camera's red light flickered. Then it turned off. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. Huey stared. "Did you just ask the camera?" he whispered. Lucifer stepped inside. "Everything here is part of the lie," he said. "Even the machines." Butcher pushed Huey in. "Move!" he hissed. They descended. The air got colder. The elevator opened onto a lower level, where the lights were harsher and the walls were thicker. The cheerful slogans were gone. This part didn't pretend. They stepped out and heard a low hum, like heavy equipment running behind walls. They found the first door marked with a code. Lucifer touched it. It unlocked. Inside, a row of rooms sat behind thick glass. Each room held a person. Not prisoners in orange. People in hospital gowns, strapped to beds or sitting on the floor, eyes empty or wild. Some were clearly soups. Annie could feel it in the way the air changed near them. A faint charge. A wrongness. A young man sat rocking, whispering to himself. His fingernails were torn down to raw. A woman stared at the ceiling, tears sliding down her cheeks in silence. Huey's face went pale. "Oh my God," he whispered. M's jaw clenched. "This is what they do," he said. Butcher's eyes burned. "Cages," he muttered. Lucifer's expression tightened. Not anger. Something colder. He walked along the glass, looking into each room as if he could see the story written inside their bones. Annie stepped to one room and recognized a face from old rumor threads. A soup who had retired after a breakdown. He was here. He hadn't retired. He had been buried. Annie's voice shook. "We have to open them," she said. Frenchie nodded, already pulling tools. "Yes," he whispered. Lucifer raised a hand. "No tools," he said. He placed his palm against the control panel, and the system unlocked itself. Doors buzzed. Latches clicked down a line like dominoes. The first door opened. A man crawled out on hands and knees, blinking at the light like he hadn't seen it in years. He stared at Annie's glowing hands and flinched back. Annie lowered her light, trying to look small. "It's okay," she said. "We're getting you out." The man's lips trembled. "Vought?" he whispered. Butcher stepped forward. "Not Vought," he said. "Come on." The man looked at Butcher's face, then at the others. Then his eyes landed on Lucifer. He froze. His mouth opened. "Is that?" he whispered. "Is that?" Lucifer's gaze met his. "Hello," Lucifer said. The man's eyes filled with tears. "I desire," he began, then broke into sobs. Lucifer didn't ask the question this time. He just nodded, as if he already knew. They kept opening doors. Some people ran out, some crawled, some screamed and had to be held gently by and Annie. Kimiko moved among them like a silent guard dog, watching for sudden violence, ready to restrain without killing. Huey handed water bottles with shaking hands, whispering, "You're okay. You're okay," like saying it could make it true. Then alarms started. Red lights strobed in the hall. A loud voice boomed over speakers. "Security breach! Lockdown!" Frenchie swore. "They knew," he muttered. Butcher's eyes narrowed. "Of course they did," he said. "They let us in." Lucifer's smile returned. Thin. "A room built for me," he said. Heavy doors began to slide shut at the ends of the corridor. Moved fast. "We go now," he said, "before they seal us in." Annie grabbed a woman's arm. "Move," she urged. The woman shook, eyes wide. "They'll kill us," she whispered. Butcher's voice was sharp. "Not if we're quick," he said, though even he didn't fully believe it. A team of armed guards poured into the corridor from a side entry. Not normal security. Tactical gear, gas grenades, shock batons, faces hidden. And behind them, a figure in a white lab coat walked calmly. The scientist raised a small device like a remote. "You are trespassing," he said into a mic. His voice shook, but he tried to sound in control. "You are interfering with federal-level research." Butcher barked a laugh. "Federal my arse," he snapped. The scientist's eyes locked on Lucifer. Fear and excitement mixed in his stare. "You," the scientist had said. "You are the anomaly." Lucifer smiled. "Correct." The scientist lifted the device. "This facility is equipped with containment measures," he said. "We can—" Lucifer cut him off. "What do you desire?" he asked. The scientist's mouth opened. Then he gritted his teeth hard, jaw trembling. For a moment, Annie thought he might resist. Then the words spilled anyway. "I desire to be the man who proves you can be contained," the scientist blurted. Guards shifted, nervous. Lucifer nodded. "Honest," he said. A canister launched from the guard's line, clinking on the floor and rolling toward Lucifer. Gas hissed out. Annie coughed instantly. Huey gagged. Pulled his shirt over his face. Lucifer didn't react. The gas drifted around him like fog around a statue. Lucifer looked down at it, mildly annoyed, and snapped his fingers. The gas reversed direction, as if the air itself had changed its mind. It flowed back toward the guards in a smooth wave. The guards choked, coughing, stumbling back. Some fell to their knees. Butcher stared for half a second, then shouted, "Move! Get the people out!" Kimiko grabbed two frightened captives and pushed them toward the elevator. Frenchie covered them with a pistol that looked too small for this fight. Annie raised her hands, blasting light into the hall to blind cameras and confuse aim. Guards fired, bullets sparking off walls. Lucifer stepped forward through the chaos. The scientist raised the device again, trembling, and pressed a button. A deep hum shook the floor. The lights flickered. The air in the hall stiffened, like pressure building. Huey felt it and panicked. "What is that?" he choked. Frenchie's eyes widened. "Oh no," he whispered. "That is not for us." The hum sharpened into a high, painful tone. Annie's teeth ached. Grunted, wincing. Even Kimiko flinched. Lucifer's eyes narrowed. The sound wasn't meant to hurt humans. It was meant to hurt something else. A containment frequency. A cage song. The scientist shouted over the noise, voice cracking. "It affects his nervous system," he yelled, more to himself than to anyone. "It must." Lucifer's expression didn't show pain, but Annie saw something else. The seam in the world, the thinness, shivered. Not here in the hall, but in the air itself, like reality was being tapped with a hammer. Lucifer's gaze snapped upward. His face hardened. The hum wasn't just a weapon, it was a signal, a beacon. Something in the sound was calling to whatever watched through the crack. Lucifer lifted his hand, and the noise died instantly, like someone had cut the wire of the universe. Everyone froze in the sudden silence, coughing. The scientist stared at his device, horrified. "No," he whispered. "No, it should—" Lucifer walked up to him slowly. The scientist backed away, tripping. He scrambled like a child. Lucifer stopped a step away and looked down at him. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked softly. The scientist sobbed. "I desire to live," he choked. Lucifer nodded. "Then tell the world what you did," he said. The scientist shook his head. "They'll kill me," he cried. Lucifer's eyes turned colder. "And you thought this was better?" he asked. The scientist's mouth opened. No answer came. Lucifer didn't strike him. He didn't need to. He simply took the device from the man's trembling hands and crushed it into dust. Then he looked toward the guards. They raised weapons again, but their hands shook. Lucifer's voice carried through the hall, calm and sharp. "You built a cage," he said. "Now you live in it." The guards' knees buckled. Not from magic pain. From sudden, crushing fear that finally made sense. Butcher yelled, "Stop talking and help us get out." Lucifer glanced back at the captives, stumbling toward the elevator. "I'm helping," he said. The elevator doors were closing, triggered by lockdown. Frenchie ran, slamming a hand into the gap. The doors squeezed, then reopened. Pushed people in. Kimiko lifted a weak captive like they weighed nothing, and shoved them inside. Huey scrambled in last, eyes wide. Annie turned to Lucifer. "Now!" she shouted. Lucifer stepped into the elevator calmly. Butcher glared at him. "You walk like you've got nowhere to be," he snapped. Lucifer smiled faintly. "I don't," he said. The elevator began to rise. Halfway up, the lights inside flickered. The hum returned, faint, like an echo. Lucifer's head tilted. Annie felt it too. Not the sound, but the pressure. Like the world was listening. Lucifer's expression tightened. "That was foolish," he murmured. Butcher narrowed his eyes. "What was foolish?" Lucifer looked at him. "They weren't trying to hurt me," he said. "They were trying to call something." Huey's voice squeaked. "Call what?" Lucifer's gaze went distant, as if looking at a door only he could see. "A response," he said simply. The elevator dinged. The doors opened onto the upper level again. They rushed out into halls that now screamed with alarms and running boots. They moved fast toward the exit route. But Vought had planned for this too. A blast door slammed down in front of them, sealing the corridor. Guards appeared behind them, forcing them into a dead-end pocket. Annie spun, light flaring in her hands. Kimiko crouched, ready. Raised his gun, though he knew bullets wouldn't solve a whole army. Butcher stared at the blocked door, furious. "Right," Butcher growled. "Here comes the part where we die." Lucifer walked past them and placed his hand on the blast door. The heavy steel shuddered. Then it unlocked, not because it melted, because the lock decided it was pointless. The door rolled up. Butcher stared. "That's cheating," he muttered. Lucifer glanced back. "Yes," he said. "That's the point." They ran. They burst outside into night air. A helicopter roared overhead. Spotlights swept. Vought drones buzzed like angry insects. They sprinted toward the fence. More guards converged. Annie blasted a light flare into a drone, making it spin out and crash. Kimiko moved like a blur, knocking guards down without killing, breaking arms and legs with quick precision. Covered the captives as they ran. Huey tripped, caught himself, kept moving, crying out as his lungs burned. Butcher shoved him forward. "Move, you useless!" Butcher cut himself off, then shouted instead, "Move!" Lucifer walked among the chaos like a calm center, turning rifles away with small gestures, making lights fail, making locks open. And still, the pressure grew. As they reached the fence line, Annie felt it in her chest, heavy and wrong. Lucifer stopped and looked back at the facility. The air above the building shimmered faintly, like heat haze. But this wasn't heat. This was reality thinning. A line formed in the sky above the labs, like the first edge of the tear that had dropped Lucifer into this world. Frenchie saw it and whispered, "No!" Butcher's eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" Lucifer's face was no longer amused. "That," he said, voice low, "is what they called." The shimmer widened by an inch, then two. A crack of darkness, not shaped like a clean door this time, more like a wound being pulled open. Wind pushed outward, cold and dry. Papers flew. Dust lifted. The captive screamed. Huey grabbed Annie's arm. "Close it!" he shouted at Lucifer. "Please!" Lucifer's eyes stayed on the crack. "It's not fully open," he said. "Not yet." Butcher's voice shook with rage. "Not yet?" he snapped. "You letting it open?" Lucifer turned his head slightly. "No," he said. "I'm deciding how." Then he raised his hand toward the sky. The crack resisted, like something on the other side pressed back. Lucifer's jaw tightened. For the first time, Annie saw effort. Not strain like pain. Effort like a king pushing a door shut against another king. The crack shivered. The wind screamed louder. Lucifer's voice cut through it, calm and sharp. "Not now," he said. The crack snapped smaller, like a mouth forced closed. It didn't vanish. It sealed into a thin scar in the air above the building, glowing faintly like a warning. Lucifer lowered his hand. Annie stared at him, breathing hard. "What was that?" she whispered. Lucifer's face was calm again, but his eyes were darker. "A knock," he said, and someone knocked back. Butcher's mouth twisted. "You did that!" he snarled. "You brought that!" Lucifer looked at him with a quiet, dangerous patience. "No," Lucifer said. "They did. They built a beacon and lit it." He turned away from the facility. "Now," Lucifer added, voice low, "your world has told the universe it's hungry." Butcher didn't have an answer to that. They ran into the trees and vanished into the night as the scar above the building faded into something only the sky could remember. Behind them, Vought's lights and sirens kept screaming. And somewhere very far away, something listened and did not forget. They hid in an abandoned subway maintenance room 2 hours later. It smelled like rust and damp concrete. The rescued people huddled together, wrapped in stolen blankets. Some cried. Some stared into nothing. Some kept whispering, "I'm free," like they were trying to teach their brains the word. MM moved among them, steady and quiet, giving water, checking injuries. Frenchie rigged a lock on the door with wire and a screwdriver, hands shaking slightly. "They will search," he said. "They always search." Kimiko sat in a corner near the door, alert, ready to kill if she had to. Huey sat on the floor with his head in his hands, breathing like he had run across the world. Annie leaned against the wall, hands still glowing faintly, exhausted. Butcher stood apart, staring at Lucifer like he was trying to decide where to stab the idea of him. Lucifer sat on a broken crate, like it was a throne. He looked too clean for the room, like dirt refused to cling to him. Butcher finally spoke, voice low. "You could have stopped them," he said. "You could have ended Homelander. You could have ended Vought. You could have ended all of this." Lucifer looked at him calmly. "Yes," he said. Butcher's anger flared. "Then why didn't you?" Lucifer tilted his head. "Because you would still be you," he said, "and they would still be them. Only the shape would change. Butcher's eyes burned. "That's a cop-out," he snapped. Lucifer's gaze sharpened. "No," he said. "It's a truth you hate." Annie pushed off the wall. "What about the crack?" she asked. "The thing in the sky. You said someone answered." Lucifer's face went still. "Yes," he said. Huey looked up, terrified. "Someone from where you come from." Lucifer's voice stayed calm. "Not exactly," he said, "but something that knows doors. Something that follows anomalies." Frenchie swallowed. "A hunter," he whispered. Lucifer nodded. "Perhaps," he said. "Or a keeper." Butcher stared at Lucifer. "So what now?" he demanded. "You gonna open more doors? Bring more nightmares? Or are you gonna help us finish what we started?" Lucifer's smile returned, thin and unreadable. "I am helping," he said. Butcher scoffed. "By watching?" Lucifer stood. The room went slightly quieter without anyone meaning to. Lucifer looked around at the captives huddled together, at Annie's tight face, at Huey's fear, at Kimiko's silent rage, at MM's tired patience, at Frenchie's shaking hands, at Butcher's hate. Then Lucifer spoke, simple and clear. "This world runs on lies," he said. "Vought is one lie. Homelander is another. But the biggest lie is that you have no choice." He looked at Butcher. "You believe violence is your only language," Lucifer said. "You believe hatred is the only fuel that works." Butcher's jaw clenched. Lucifer's eyes moved to Annie. "You believe you're trapped in a story someone else writes," Lucifer said. "You're not." Then he looked at the group as a whole. "So, here's what I'm going to do," Lucifer said. "I'm going to give your world a place where truth is louder than fear." Butcher narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" Lucifer smiled. "It means I'm opening my club," he said. Huey blinked. "Your what?" Lucifer's eyes gleamed with mild amusement. "A place," he said, "where people come because they want something, and they leave because they finally said it out loud." Annie frowned. "You're going to start a nightclub?" Lucifer shook his head. "Not for dancing," he said. "For confession." Butcher barked a short laugh. "This is insane." Lucifer's smile widened. "Yes," he said. "That's why it will work." MM's voice was wary. "And how does that bring Vought down?" he asked. Lucifer's gaze turned sharp. "Because Vought can survive guns," he said. "It cannot survive everyone telling the truth at once." He looked back toward the city, as if he could see the tower through concrete. "And because Edgar has already built a room for me," Lucifer added, "so I will build a room for all of you." Butcher stared, then muttered, "Bloody hell." Lucifer glanced at him. "What do you desire, William?" he asked softly. Butcher's face tightened. He tried to resist. He failed. "I desire," Butcher said, voice rough, "to win without becoming him." Silence. Huey stared at Butcher like he had never heard him sound human before. Butcher looked furious at himself for saying it. Lucifer nodded once, satisfied. "Good," Lucifer said. "Then choose that." And in the damp, rusted room under the city, the war shifted. Not into peace. Into something more dangerous. A truth that couldn't be put back in the cage. 2 days later, Vought announced a special broadcast. It was polished, bright, patriotic. Smiles everywhere. A banner read, "Truth Justice, a live event." The anchor spoke with practiced warmth. "America," she said, "we have witnessed something extraordinary. A man has appeared among us, offering honesty in a time of confusion." Clips played of Lucifer saving the hostages. None of the confession parts stayed in the montage. None of Homelander's worst moments stayed either. The footage had been cut and cleaned and turned into a product. "We are proud," the anchor said, "to welcome a new guardian, an outsider who chose to stand with us." The camera switched to a stage inside Vought Tower. Lucifer stood under lights again, but this time the crowd was invited. This time, Vought had planned every angle. Annie watched the broadcast from a hidden place with the boys, her stomach tight. She knew the building. She knew the traps. But Lucifer had told them to watch. "Let him walk into it?" Huey whispered, horrified. Butcher's eyes were hard. "He wants to," he said. "He thinks he can flip the table." MM's voice was low. "Or he thinks the table isn't real," he said. On the screen, Homelander stood beside Lucifer with a fixed smile. His eyes were bright with forced calm. Annie could see the hate under it. Edgar stood off to the side, not on stage, but close enough to be seen. A man presenting control without claiming glory. The host spoke into a mic. "Mr. Morningstar," she said, "America wants to know, who are you?" Lucifer smiled, calm. "You already know," he said. The host laughed nervously. "Well," she said, "what do you want here?" Lucifer looked straight into the camera. "I want to hear what you want," he said. The host blinked. "Excuse me?" Lucifer's voice stayed smooth. "You built a world where people lie to survive," he said. "So let's try something else." He turned slightly toward the crowd. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. Vought had filled the front rows with safe people, trained people, employees and loyal fans, and selected randoms. A young man stood up, hands shaking. His mouth opened, and the truth came out. "I desire to be famous," he blurted. People laughed. It seemed harmless. A woman stood next, cheeks red. "I desire my husband to stop cheating," she blurted. The laughter got awkward. A man in a suit stood, sweating. "I desire my company to stop poisoning the water," he said, voice cracking. The room chilled. Edgar's eyes tightened slightly. Homelander's smile twitched. Lucifer walked down the stage steps slowly, moving among the crowd like a calm storm. He pointed at another person. "What do you desire?" A Vought employee stood, face pale. "I desire to tell the world what we do to kids," he blurted. The room exploded into noise. Edgar's hand lifted slightly, signaling a cut. The feed did not cut. Lucifer looked at the ceiling camera. "What do you desire?" he asked it softly. The camera stayed on. The broadcast kept rolling. Annie's heart pounded as she watched from the safe house. "He's doing it," she whispered. Butcher's face was hard, but his eyes were focused like a man seeing a door open. On screen, Homelander stepped forward, voice booming. "Okay," Homelander said, laughing too loudly. "That's enough fun. America loves honesty, sure, but—" Lucifer turned his head toward Homelander. The room went silent again. Even the crowd felt it. Lucifer looked at Homelander with calm eyes. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. Homelander's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. He tried to smile through it. "I desire—" Homelander started, then stopped, fighting like a man holding back vomit. Lucifer's voice stayed gentle. "Go on," he said. Homelander's eyes blazed red. The crowd flinched. Edgar stepped forward, calm, into the space between them. "Mr. Morningstar," Edgar said into a mic, voice smooth. "This is not the time." Lucifer's gaze slid to Edgar. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. Edgar's face didn't change, but his voice, when it came, was slightly slower than usual. "I desire," Edgar said, "for you to be predictable." Lucifer smiled. "And I desire," Lucifer replied, "for you to admit you can't control everything." The crowd murmured. The cameras drank it in. Homelander's eyes flashed brighter. He couldn't stand being ignored. He leaned toward the mic, voice sharp. "I desire you to shut up," Homelander snarled. The words landed like a slap. Gasps rippled. Homelander froze, realizing what he had said out loud. Lucifer's smile widened. "See?" Lucifer said softly. "So easy." Homelander lunged. Not at Lucifer. At the nearest camera. He tore it off its mount and crushed it, snarling. The feed jolted, but other cameras held. Homelander looked up at the remaining lenses, breathing hard. Then he turned to the crowd and forced a smile again. Bigger. Brighter. America, he boomed. What you're seeing is a trick. A mind game. Lucifer's voice cut in, calm and clear. No, Lucifer said. It's you. Homelander's smile snapped, and with that, Homelander made his new choice. He stopped trying to win with power. He started trying to win with hate. He pointed at Lucifer and shouted, loud enough for every mic to catch. "This man is dangerous," Homelander yelled. "He is attacking our minds. He is turning you against your heroes." The crowd shifted, confused, afraid, angry. Edgar's eyes stayed calm, but his tone changed slightly as he stepped in. "We will end the broadcast," Edgar said smoothly, "for public safety." Lucifer looked at the cameras again. "What do you desire?" he asked them. This time, the feed cut. The screen went black in the safe house. Huey stared. Did they just... Frenchie exhaled. "They cut it," he said. But too late. Butcher's phone buzzed. Then Annie's. Then everyone's. Clips had already escaped. The truth was already loose, and Vought had just shown the world something else too. That they were afraid. Butcher looked at the group. "Now," he said, voice hard. "It gets personal." Annie stared at the blank screen, heart hammering. Somewhere far away, beyond cameras and propaganda, that thin pressure at the edge of reality tightened again, like something had heard Lucifer speak to the machines and decided the door was worth another try. And in the tower, Homelander stood under bright lights with his smile breaking, realizing a simple truth. He could make people cheer. He could make people fear. But he could not make people forget what they had heard. The city learned his walking pattern before it learned what to call him. He showed up where lies were loud. A courthouse hallway, a late-night talk show green room, a hospital waiting room where families pretended they were fine. Sometimes he was seen stepping out of a taxi. Sometimes he was seen already sitting somewhere, like he had always been there. And almost every time, someone heard the same question. "What do you desire?" At first, people treated it like a joke, a meme, a new internet challenge. Then it started breaking careers. A mayor, smiling into a microphone, suddenly said he desired to keep poor neighborhoods poor because it kept him elected. A popular patriot preacher said he desired donations more than salvation. A Vought spokesperson said she desired to erase footage instead of saving lives. Some people laughed. Some people cried. Some people got violent. Some people got quiet and went home and didn't come back to their jobs the next day. And Vought learned something simple and painful. They could spin a lie. They could bury a fact. But they could not make the whole city unhear a truth once it was spoken out loud. So Vought did what it always did. It adapted. 2 weeks after the transit hub, a new club opened in a part of the city Vought didn't advertise. Not fancy, not cheap. Just clean enough, quiet enough, and safe enough to feel real. No giant banner, no hero posters, no smiling flags. Just a sign over the door with a single word in simple white letters. Lux. Annie stood across the street in a hoodie, watching the line. She had been Annie again for 2 weeks. Not Starlight. Not Vought's daughter. Not a product. It felt strange to stand in the cold and see normal people choose a door. People from all kinds of places waited. Office workers, a nurse, a guy in a delivery jacket, a woman in a suit who kept checking her phone like her life might explode. There were no cameras. If anyone pulled the phone out, the screen glitched and died until they put it away. Lucifer said it was a house rule. Butcher called it witchcraft. MM called it smart. Huey called it thank God. Annie watched the door open and close. She felt the pull in her chest, a mix of fear and hope she didn't fully trust. Butcher stood beside her in the shadow, hands in his coat pockets, eyes hard. "This is his new routine," Butcher muttered. "A club, like a bloody hobby." Annie didn't look away from the door. "It's not a hobby," she said. "It's a weapon." Butcher snorted. "Same thing." Was nearby, across the street, pretending to smoke while scanning the area. Frenchie and Kimiko were closer to the back alley, watching the side exits. Huey stood with Annie and Butcher, shifting his weight like his body wanted to flee. "I don't get it," Huey whispered. "Why would anyone go in there?" Annie glanced at him. "Because they're tired," she said. "Because people want to say the truth, somewhere that won't laugh at them." Butcher's mouth twisted. "Or because they want to wish," he said. "People hear devil and think deal." Huey swallowed. Can he do that? Like, give people things? Annie thought about the boy with the sick mother, about Lucifer's calm face when he said he couldn't fix everything. "I don't think he's here to hand out prizes," she said. "I think he's here to watch what we do when nobody can lie." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "And that's why I don't trust him," he said. The line moved. The door opened again. Lucifer stood in it for 1 second, letting someone out. The person leaving was a big man with red eyes. He looked like he had been punched in the chest by his own feelings. He walked away without speaking, wiping his face with his sleeve like he hated himself for crying. Lucifer watched him go, then saw Annie across the street. His gaze met hers. He didn't wave. He didn't smile wide. He simply nodded once, like he had been expecting her to show up, eventually. Then he went back inside. Butcher's jaw tightened. "He's playing with you," he said. Annie's voice stayed flat. "He's not playing with me," she said. "He's playing with all of them." They crossed the street. The bouncer at the door wasn't a soup, just a normal guy in a black shirt, arms crossed, looking bored. Butcher watched him closely. "You let anyone in?" Butcher asked. The bouncer shrugged. "If they want to be honest," he said. Then, with a small, uncomfortable grimace, he added, "And if they don't bring a camera." Butcher blinked. "You know who I am?" he asked. The bouncer stared, then spoke like the words escaped him. "I desire for you to stop staring at me like you'll stab me," he blurted. Butcher froze. Huey's mouth fell open. Annie felt a weird laugh push up in her chest, then die. Butcher's face reddened with anger, partly at the bouncer and mostly at himself. Lucifer's rules were already working outside the door. They stepped inside. The club was not loud, not a chaos party. The music was soft. The lights were warm. People sat in small groups like they were in a quiet restaurant, except there was no food being pushed and no sales pitch in the air. There was a stage in the back with a piano. Lucifer sat at it, playing like the keys belonged to him. A glass of something sat on top of the piano, untouched. He looked up as Annie and the others entered. "Welcome," he said. His voice carried without effort. People turned their heads. Some stared. Some looked away fast. Like looking at him too long might make the truth spill out by accident. Butcher stepped forward first, because that was what he did when he was scared. "So this is it," he said. "Your little truth hut." Lucifer stopped playing and turned on the bench to face them. "It's a room," he said. "Rooms matter." Stepped up, calm. "Why do this?" he asked. "Why a club?" Lucifer's smile was small. "Because humans come to places like this to pretend," he said. "So I made a place where pretending is boring." Huey hovered behind Annie, eyes wide. "Is it safe?" he asked. Lucifer tilted his head. "No," he said. "It's honest. That's different." Annie's throat tightened. "Vought will burn this down," she said quietly. Lucifer's gaze slid to her. "Let them try," he said. Butcher leaned in. "They'll do worse than try," he said. "They'll make you the villain." Lucifer's eyes gleamed. "They already are," he said. "They just haven't decided which costume yet." Annie glanced around. "Why are these people here?" she asked. Lucifer stood from the bench, smooth and calm, and walked past them into the room. "Because they desire something," he said simply. He stopped at a table where a woman sat alone, hands wrapped around a glass like it was an anchor. Lucifer looked at her gently. "What do you desire?" he asked. The woman's lips trembled. "I desire to stop being scared of my husband," she blurted. Her eyes went wide in shock, then filled with tears. Lucifer nodded once. "Then leave him," he said, "and don't apologize for it." The woman covered her mouth, shaking. Lucifer moved on. At another table, a man in a suit laughed too loud with friends. Lucifer stopped and asked. The man blurted, "I desire to stop lying to my kid about where his mom went." His friends went quiet. The man's face collapsed. "Oh God," he whispered. Lucifer placed a hand on the back of his chair, not comforting and not cruel. "Just there." "Then tell him," Lucifer said. He turned back to Annie and the boys. "This is what I do," Lucifer said, calm. "I ask. They answer. Then they choose." Butcher's mouth twisted. "You think this brings Vought down?" he said. Lucifer's eyes stayed steady. "I think it makes Vought weak," he said, "because Vought needs people to lie to themselves first." MM's voice was careful. "And what about Homelander?" he asked. The temperature of the room didn't change, but Annie felt something tighten anyway. Lucifer smiled faintly. "He is coming," he said. Huey swallowed. "How do you know?" Lucifer's eyes flicked to the ceiling, like he could hear a sound no one else could. "Because he desires an audience," Lucifer said. Annie felt her stomach drop. "We need to be ready," she said. Butcher nodded. "We've got ideas," he said, and that meant weapons and traps and plans that might kill people who deserved it and people who didn't. Lucifer looked at Butcher. "And you will make a mess," he said. Butcher bristled. "Don't tell me what I'll do." Lucifer's gaze sharpened, calm but heavy. "What do you desire, William?" he asked. Butcher's face tightened. The words tried to climb out. He clenched his jaw, fighting hard. For a moment, it looked like he might win. Then he didn't. "I desire to put his head through a wall," Butcher blurted. Some nearby patrons glanced over, nervous. Butcher's face turned red with fury. He hated being made honest. Lucifer nodded as if Butcher had just confirmed the weather. "And if you do," Lucifer said, "what will you become?" Butcher snapped, "Better than him." Lucifer didn't argue. He just watched. That was worse. Annie stepped closer to Lucifer, voice low. "You're pushing him," she warned. Lucifer glanced at her. "I'm showing him," he said. Before Annie could respond, the front doors blew open. Not with fire, with force. The air changed like the whole room held its breath. People turned. Homelander walked in. No cape fluttering for a camera, no big smile, no bright hero voice. He wore a dark jacket over his suit like he was trying to look casual. It didn't work. His eyes were too bright. His jaw was too tight. Two Vought security men followed behind him, nervous, like they had been ordered to carry a lion on a leash. Homelander looked around the club with disgust. "This is cute," he said. Everyone froze. Some people tried to stand up. Some people stayed seated, trapped by fear. Homelander's gaze snapped to Annie. "Starlight," he said, voice dripping with false warmth. "So you're here too." Annie's hands glowed faintly without her meaning to. Homelander's eyes moved to Butcher and the others. His smile sharpened. "And the rats," he said. Then his eyes landed on Lucifer. The room went quiet enough to hear ice clink in a glass. Lucifer stood near the stage, calm as ever, like a host welcoming a difficult guest. "Hello?" Lucifer said. Homelander's smile twitched. "You don't get to do this," he said. "You don't get to walk in and steal what's mine." Lucifer tilted his head. "What's yours?" he asked. Homelander's nostrils flared. He opened his mouth, then stopped, like he remembered the last time. Lucifer's voice stayed gentle. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked. Homelander's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped. He fought it. He looked away, then back, like he was trying to force his own mouth to behave. "I desire," he started. His eyes flashed red. Lucifer didn't move. Homelander's lips trembled. And then the truth forced its way out. "I desire you to kneel," Homelander blurted. The words sounded childish, desperate. A few patrons flinched, not because of the sentence, but because it came from the god of television. Homelander's face twisted in rage. Lucifer smiled faintly. "No," he said. Homelander's eyes burned brighter. "Fine," he hissed. "Then I'll do it the other way." He turned slightly, projecting his voice like he was on stage. "Everyone here," Homelander shouted, "is being attacked. This man is messing with your minds." He pointed at Lucifer. "He is making you say things," Homelander yelled. "He is turning you against your families, your jobs, your country." Some people looked around, scared and confused. Fear was familiar. Fear was easy. But then, a woman near the bar stood up, shaking. "No," she said, voice small. "He didn't make me. I said what I already felt." Homelander's head snapped toward her. His eyes narrowed. Lucifer didn't move, but his voice carried softly. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked the woman, not because he needed it, but because he wanted the room to hear the choice. The woman swallowed. "I desire," she said, voice stronger now, "to stop lying for people who hurt me." Homelander stared at her like she had spit in his face. A man at another table stood too. "I desire to stop cheering when you hurt people," he blurted, then covered his mouth like he couldn't believe he said it. The room shifted. Not into bravery. Into something more dangerous. A group of people realizing, together, that fear didn't have to be their only language. Homelander's smile shattered. He took one step forward. The floor creaked. The whole club went still again, old fear trying to return. Butcher moved, hand near a weapon he had no business using in a crowded room. Put a hand on Butcher's shoulder. "Steady." "Not here," murmured. Butcher's eyes burned. "Then where?" he hissed. Homelander's eyes locked on Lucifer. "You're going to stop," Homelander said, voice low. "Right now." Lucifer's gaze was calm. "No," he repeated. Homelander lunged. Fast, violent. People screamed and dove under tables. Annie stepped forward, light blasting instinctively, trying to blind and protect at once. Homelander's fist shot toward Lucifer's face. It stopped inches away. The air refused to let it land. Homelander growled, muscles straining, pushing against a force he couldn't see. Lucifer looked at the fist like it was a rude gesture. "You're still trying to win with strength," Lucifer said quietly. "It's all you have." Homelander's eyes blazed. He fired heat vision. The beams hit Lucifer's chest and faded like sunlight on stone. Lucifer didn't blink. Homelander's face went pale for half a second. Then rage swallowed it. He turned his beams away from Lucifer and swept them across the ceiling. Sparks rained down. Wood smoked. The lights flickered. People screamed louder. Panic rose. Homelander's voice boomed over it. "See?" he shouted. "He can't protect you." Annie's heart pounded. She knew this trick. Make it messy. Make it dangerous. Make the hero look like the only shield. Lucifer's gaze shifted from Homelander to the people huddled on the floor. His expression changed. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. He lifted one hand. The smoke stopped spreading. The sparks froze mid-air for a heartbeat, then fell gently, cold, like dead ash. The ceiling beams that had started to crack settled back into place as if the building remembered how to be whole. People stared, mouths open. Homelander's eyes widened in a way Annie had never seen before. Not awe. Fear. Homelander backed up one step without meaning to. Lucifer lowered his hand and looked at him, calm. "You could have chosen to be better," Lucifer said. Homelander's face twisted. "Don't talk to me like that," he snarled. Lucifer took a slow step forward. Homelander stepped back again. His eyes flicked to the crowd, to the witnesses. He needed the room to fear him again. He grabbed a man by the collar and yanked him up as a shield. The man screamed, kicking. Homelander held him out, jaw tight. "Back off," Homelander hissed at Lucifer, "or he dies." Butcher moved instantly, anger blazing. "You!" grabbed him hard. "No!" snapped. "Not yet!" Annie's hands glowed brighter. She tried to find an angle. A clean shot. No collateral. Lucifer looked at the man in Homelander's grip. Then he looked at Homelander. "What do you desire?" Lucifer asked again, soft. Homelander's lips trembled. He didn't want to answer. He couldn't stop himself. "I desire," Homelander whispered, voice cracking, "to be the only one they worship." The room went silent again, but this silence was not fear. It was disgust. It was pity. It was the sound of a lie dying. Homelander felt it. His eyes went wild. He shoved the hostage away like trash and shot upward, crashing through the ceiling and blasting into the open air above the club. The building shook, but it didn't collapse. Lucifer didn't let it. Annie ran outside with the others, people pouring out behind them. They looked up. Homelander hovered above the street, lit by city glow, face twisted with rage. "This is my city!" he roared. Vought helicopters appeared in the distance, arriving fast, spotlights cutting through the night. Drones buzzed overhead. And then, right on schedule, the cameras came. Homelander wanted a stage. Vought was happy to give him one. Edgar's plan didn't need the club to survive. It needed the moment. A helicopter speaker blared. "This is a public safety event. Stay calm. Remain in place." People didn't remain in place. They backed away, phones rising again. Annie saw it happening and felt sick. They were turning this into a show. Again. But this time, the show had a crack in it. Lucifer stepped out into the street, hands relaxed at his sides. He looked up at Homelander like he was looking at a storm cloud. Homelander shouted down, "You think you're better than me?" Lucifer's voice carried up, calm and clear. "I don't think about you as much as you want," Lucifer said. Homelander screamed and dove, fast enough to break sound. Annie threw light upward instinctively, trying to shield people. But Lucifer lifted a hand. Homelander stopped in midair again, inches above the asphalt, suspended like a statue. Cars screeched. People screamed, then went quiet as they realized what they were seeing. The god of their world, frozen like a toy. Lucifer turned his head slightly, gaze moving to the Vought helicopter. He could see the camera lens. He could feel the hunger of the broadcast. Lucifer spoke calmly. "What do you desire?" he asked the camera. The pilot's voice crackled over the speaker by mistake, hot-mic'd. "I desire to not get fired," the pilot blurted. People laughed in short, shocked bursts. Then the laughter turned into a wave of anger, because it was too true. Lucifer looked at the camera again. "What do you desire?" he asked. A Vought producer's voice came through, also hot-mic'd, panicked. "I desire for this to be framed as an attack," the producer blurted. The street froze. Annie felt her heart slam against her ribs. She stared up at the helicopter, mouth open. Butcher looked up too, eyes burning. "Gotcha," he whispered. MM's face tightened. "That's the machine," he murmured. Right there. Homelander thrashed in midair, silent with fury, unable to move. Lucifer looked up at him and spoke softly, almost private, even though the whole city heard. You wanted worship, Lucifer said, but worship built on fear turns into hate. Homelander's eyes blazed red, but his beams didn't fire. He couldn't. Lucifer lowered his hand slightly. Homelander dropped just enough to slam into the street and crack the pavement. Not dead, not broken. Humiliated. Annie watched the crowd's reaction change in real time. This wasn't a neat, heroic scene anymore. This wasn't a Vought ad. It was ugly and real. A man shouted, "He's a fraud!" Someone else shouted back, "Homelander saved us for years!" Another voice yelled, "He just threatened a hostage." The crowd didn't agree, but they didn't chant his name either. Homelander pushed up on one knee, breathing hard, staring at Lucifer like he wanted to rip the sky apart. Vought soldiers began to move in, forming a perimeter, weapons ready. Edgar's voice came through a different speaker now, calm and controlled. "Mr. Morningstar," Edgar said, amplified over the street, "this has gone far enough." Lucifer turned his head slightly, finding the helicopter speaker like it was just another person in the room. "Hello, Stan," Lucifer said. Edgar's tone stayed even. "You are causing panic," Edgar said. "You are destabilizing the public." Lucifer nodded, as if Edgar had described the weather. "Yes," Lucifer said, "because your stability is a lie." Edgar paused. Just a beat. Then he spoke with a new softness, the voice of a man offering a deal. "We can give you a structure," Edgar said. "A controlled platform. A role. You can do your truth work without chaos." Lucifer's eyes narrowed with amusement. "You want to license honesty," Lucifer said. Edgar didn't deny it. "I want to contain damage," Edgar said, "and I am offering you access, money, influence, anything." Lucifer smiled faintly. "Anything?" he echoed. Edgar's voice stayed calm. "Anything reasonable," he corrected. Lucifer laughed once. Short. "There it is," Lucifer said. He turned his gaze back to Homelander, then to the crowd, then to Annie and the boys. And then he did something Annie didn't expect. He didn't explode Vaught's helicopters. He didn't tear the tower down. He didn't kill Homelander. He stepped aside. He looked at the crowd and spoke in a voice that was simple and clear. "I will not rule you," Lucifer said. "I will not save you as a job. I will not be your mascot." He pointed up at the helicopter. "But I will keep asking," Lucifer said, "because you deserve to hear yourselves." He turned and looked at Annie. Annie felt her throat tighten. Lucifer's gaze held her. "Stop pretending," he said softly, just to her. Annie took a shaky breath and stepped forward, into the open street, into the cameras, into the noise. Her hands glowed bright enough to wash the street in clean light. She looked up at the helicopter. Then she looked at the crowd. And for the first time in her life, she spoke without a script. "My name is Annie January," she said, voice shaking but real. "And Vought lies to you." Gasps rippled. Vought soldiers stiffened. Edgar's silence on the speaker was sharp. Homelander's head snapped toward Annie, eyes burning. Annie kept going anyway. "They staged attacks," Annie said. "They use people like props. They hurt kids. They lock soups in cages when they can't sell them." Butcher stared at her, shocked. MM's face tightened, proud and scared at the same time. Huey's eyes filled with tears. Annie pointed toward Homelander. "And Homelander," Annie said, voice steadier now, "is not a hero. He's a threat." Homelander roared, launching upward. But Lucifer lifted one finger. Homelander stopped again, mid-air, helpless. The crowd saw it. Not just the power. The fact that Homelander couldn't stop the truth anymore. Edgar's voice came back, colder. "Annie," Edgar said over the speaker. "You are confused. You are in danger." Annie looked up and laughed once, sharp and bitter. "No," she said. "I'm finally not." Lucifer watched her like a teacher watching a student finally stop cheating on a test. Butcher stepped forward too, unable to hold back. "You want more truth?" Butcher shouted at the cameras. "Here's some. Vought made monsters and sold them to you." Vought soldiers raised weapons toward Butcher. Moved in front of him instantly, shielding him like family. Lucifer's gaze flicked to the soldiers. They froze, not because he hurt them, because their bodies remembered that he could. Lucifer didn't speak to them. He spoke to the crowd again. "You can choose what happens next," Lucifer said. "You can go home and pretend you didn't hear, or you can keep listening." The street stayed loud, but it changed. It wasn't a cheer. It wasn't worship. It was people arguing, shouting, crying, demanding answers. That was the crack Vought couldn't easily seal. Edgar's voice came through one last time, controlled, but strained. "This broadcast is over," Edgar said. The helicopter lights turned away. The drones began to pull back, but the phones stayed up. The truth was already outside the gate. Homelander screamed in silent rage, suspended above the street. Lucifer looked up at him one last time. "You're not a god," Lucifer said, calm. "You're a child who never learned no." Then Lucifer let Homelander drop again, hard enough to hurt his pride more than his body. Homelander hit the street and lay there, breathing hard, staring at the sky like the sky had betrayed him. Lucifer turned and walked back toward the club. Annie watched him go, heart pounding. He wasn't staying to lead a revolution. He wasn't staying to be praised. He was leaving the choice behind. Butcher stared after him, jaw tight. "Coward," Butcher muttered, even though part of him knew it wasn't that. Lucifer paused at the club door and looked back. "What do you desire, William?" he asked softly. Butcher's face twisted. He fought it. Then, quietly, he said it. "I desire," Butcher rasped, "to not lose myself." Lucifer nodded once. "Then don't," he said, and he went inside. Days passed, then more days. The city didn't calm down. Vought tried to clamp down, but every clamp created more noise, more leaks, more whistleblowers suddenly saying what they had been afraid to say for years. Some were brave, some were selfish, some just wanted revenge. Lucifer's question didn't make anyone good. It just made them honest. The boys moved constantly, dodging heat, using the chaos like cover. Annie stayed with them now, fully out, fully hunted, fully real. Huey looked like he was walking through a nightmare, but he kept walking. Kept the group steady. Frenchie and Kimiko moved like shadows, protecting the rescued people as best they could. And Butcher got quieter, not kinder, just quieter. Homelander vanished for a while after the street humiliation. Vought claimed it was a strategic retreat, a recalibration. People that didn't fully believe them anymore. That was new. One night, Annie went back to Lux alone. Not because she needed orders, because she needed to understand. The club was quieter now. Not empty, but quieter. Like the city had learned this was not a place to party. Lucifer sat at the piano again, playing something slow. Annie stood near the stage until he finished the phrase. He looked up at her. "You did it," he said. Annie swallowed. "I don't know what I did," she admitted. Lucifer smiled faintly. "You chose," he said. Annie stepped closer. "Are you staying?" she asked. Lucifer's eyes flicked toward the dark corner of the room, toward nothing and something at the same time. Annie felt it too now, the pressure at the edge of reality, like a door breathing. Lucifer's voice stayed calm. "Someone is watching," he said. Annie's throat tightened. "From your world?" Lucifer shook his head slightly. "From between," he said. things that notice doors. Annie looked around. Are they coming here? Lucifer's smile was small. Perhaps, he said, but they won't come because they want to punish you. Annie frowned. Then why? Lucifer's eyes were bright and old again. Because your world shouted into the dark, Lucifer said, and the dark heard you. Annie's stomach sank. So what do we do? Lucifer looked at the keys, then at her. You keep choosing, he said simply. That's what makes you dangerous. Annie's hands trembled. I'm scared, she admitted. Lucifer nodded. Yes, he said. So is everyone. That's why honesty matters. Annie stared at him. Why do you care? She asked. You act like you don't, but you keep doing this. Lucifer's face softened just a little. I like humans, he said. You disappoint me. You amaze me. You make rules and break them, and then cry about it. Annie almost laughed. Lucifer's smile returned, sharper. And, he added, you're the only creatures who can choose to be better while being weak. That's rare. Annie's eyes burned. She took a breath. What do you desire? She asked him, turning the question back for the first time. Lucifer paused. Just a beat. Then he answered, voice quiet. I desire, Lucifer said, to not be bored. Annie blinked. He shrugged slightly, honest and almost human in the simplicity. And, he added after a moment, I desire to see if a world this broken can still change. Annie nodded slowly. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. The city was still fighting itself awake. Lucifer returned his fingers to the keys. Annie turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back. Thank you, she said, and hated how small it sounded. Lucifer didn't stop playing. He just said, don't thank me. Annie frowned. Lucifer's voice stayed calm. Thank yourself, he said. You're the one who chose. She stepped out into the night. Lucifer stayed in Lux long after the last patron left. The club lights dimmed to a soft glow. The city noise outside became a distant hum, like an ocean you never fully escaped. He sat alone at the piano, one hand resting on the keys without pressing them. He listened, not just to the city, to the edge. That thin pressure in the air was still there, steady now, a presence without a face, a watcher. Lucifer turned his head slightly toward the far wall, where shadows pooled. I know you're there, he said quietly. The air did not move. No voice answered, but the pressure shifted, like something leaning closer. Lucifer smiled faintly. You can tell them I'm fine, he said, and you can tell them I'm staying for now. The pressure tightened, then eased. A message received. Lucifer leaned back on the bench and looked toward the empty tables, where people had confessed their truths like they were dropping heavy bags. This world was still cruel. Vought still existed. Homelander still breathed. But something had changed. Not the system. Not yet. The people. They had heard themselves. And once you heard your own desire out loud, it was hard to pretend you didn't have a choice. Lucifer played a single note. Soft. Clean. He thought of Annie's face when she stepped into the street. He thought of Butcher's rough voice when he admitted he didn't want to lose himself. He thought of Huey's shaking courage. He thought of 1,000 small confessions that would never make headlines, but would change a life anyway. Lucifer's smile was small and real. Same old humans, he murmured. Then he asked the empty room, just because the habit pleased him. What do you desire? The room, of course, did not answer. But outside the city did, in 1,000 voices, in 1,000 choices. And Lucifer listened, calm in the middle of the noise, while the world kept turning, still messy, still loud, but different now.